Hey everyone, my name is Simsy. How you all doing? Welcome back to some more Hearts of Iron 4 Cold War mod. Here today on the channel, we're back with another episode of the United States campaign. This is episode 7. It is the 19th of March, 1981, and World War III has erupted. The Cold War is now very much a hot war, with the Soviets declaring war upon the American puppet Afghanistan. All of Europe is at war, and along with our NATO allies as well. We're currently in the Gerald Ford administration, and I'm curious to see how the president and his administration react. We've played, 30 years so far in this campaign. There is currently 3 major fronts. Obviously on the Afghanistan border, Italy. Just trying to see if there's anything over here as well. No, nothing just yet. A little bit back and forth. We've obviously got our Indian allies helping us out. They are technically in NATO when we took control of them. The High Septon seems to be controlling Afghan troops, surprisingly. Okay, so unfortunately Soviet troops have entered northern Italy and have seized the cities of Bologna and Venice. It's going to be interesting to see who wins out. Will it be the Americans or the Soviets? Let me know your predictions in the comments. So far, NATO has double the production capacity in factories. They don't have the current fielded manpower, even with India on our side. But so far, a little bit back and forth. Leipzig has fallen to the Soviets, and they are very, very close to Berlin. East Germany is losing a lot of territory. Navy-wise, looks like NATO is significantly winning, but so far it's interesting to see. It happened in the Korean conflict to some extent. The Comintern / Warsaw Pact countries are dominating the airs. I guess they have superior pilots, maybe even our Air Force as well. It just doesn't seem to be up to task. Those MiGs are going to absolute town. We've got some naval invasions here, as Greece is currently in the alliance of the Comintern. Same with Algeria and Morocco. The Turks are now out. However, a lot of the far eastern territory in Turkey is very much under Soviet control. Poland is technically part of the Warsaw Pact, but they did have to... There was a rebellion in Poland, and then they reinstalled another government. But it's going to be interesting to see who wins this one. 100k Americans lost at the moment. 140k Americans, Brits, France, Spain, and others you would consider NATO countries are now not in. Okay, looks like the Air Force is currently battling it out. We've got Italian, UK, German fighter jets. So in this series, apart from taking Greece and North Africa, the Soviets have just been sort of chilling to some extent. They didn't have a massive conflict like we did in India. So we are going with historical AI focuses turned off. That's why we've had some of the traditional story beats of the Korean Peninsula War, which we lost. And there's a stalemate in Vietnam. We did rid the con from the south, but it is still divided between north and south. It feels like the US in this series didn't really want to threaten China, and we're more so focusing on the Soviets. Well, they've sat for quite some time. We're coming to sort of, we're 8 years off the collapse of the Soviet Union. But they seem to be in a stronger position, and more of their former Soviet, which will become eventually former Soviet socialist countries, are still firmly in Moscow's umbrella. Austria seems to be neutral, which is going to complicate things, as we can't connect the southern German provinces to Italy. But the Americans at the moment seem to be focusing on the Afghan border, protecting India and Pakistan, which are somewhat vulnerable to some extent. Militarily, it's probably easier to supply as well. We might be able to push into the stands, or that Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan region. Athens being in the common term is going to complicate things. But a little bit of fighting back and forth. But unfortunately, it looks like Italian and NATO forces are very much losing in Italy and are getting pushed back as well. Oh my god. The Soviets are only one tile away from potentially retaking Berlin. M1 Abrams are deploying, but I don't know if they're going to be enough. Oh no. For the second time this century, will Soviet forces head over to, it wouldn't be the Reichstag, lifting the Soviet flag again, or maybe the Bundestag. Oh no. We still have to keep some level of forces on the mainland of the States. The Americans are still threatened in Alaska, you would imagine. But so far, we are currently crippling and cutting off their naval and resource supply. But to be fair, they still have the majority of Eastern Europe and Asia, so they're not going to be really supply constraint. Leipzig has been retaken by German forces, which is good. But a little bit back and forth. There was a naval invasion into Gdansk, but it hasn't seemed to have worked. 1.5 million to 1.4. But at the moment, just a little bit back and forth. But so far, with the Iron Curtain and the might of the Soviet Union and their allies bearing down on Germany, the NATO forces do not seem to be winning. And Berlin is still very much vulnerable. We've got east and west here. Soviet tanks are just in... They've literally taken South Berlin. The German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, back into service, is operating over the top. But, man, Italy not looking good. In 1981, Gerald Ford is going to have to pull a miracle here. A little bit of oh, nice. We got some naval invasions by the Brits going into the Balkans, but looks like Soviet battle tanks are rip-roaring through them. I'm sure Gerald Ford was thinking, why did I put my hand up when Nixon got done for Watergate in this? I have to deal with World War III. Alright. Okay, just sort of trading at the moment. Oh, still not looking good in Germany. Some of our jets are outdated. 100% stability, 100% war support though. We do have a huge stockpile of logistics and equipment, a bunch of artillery, if it does sort of slow down. But Germany or Italy could potentially fall here. Karl Marx, that's a city. Alright, we got some forces trying to land into northern Poland. And they have been successful. The Poles have reacted incredibly quickly. I'm curious to see how this is going to end up, to be honest. Now that the age of small civil wars and proxy conflicts is over, the battle for Europe has begun. Okay, a little bit of a beachhead here in Croatia. Seem to be holding. The NATO allies using their naval supremacy strength. But at the moment, surprisingly, even though they have superior equipment, the NATO allies, we're probably going to be able to outproduce the Soviet Union. Oh, Leipzig's fallen again. What was Eastern Germany is turning into a absolute battlefield. But the NATO alliance is pushed back here in Germany significantly. More reinforcements dropping into Poland. They came so close. They were one tile away from capturing the German capital, capturing Berlin, and they've somehow pushed them back. Okay, just skipping a little bit ahead here now. Nothing too much has overly changed. The Allied losses are really starting to balloon, and we're just sort of trading at the moment. This is going to be such a tough one. The Allies are surprisingly outnumbered. We have been pushed back here slightly by a driving Soviet convoy truck and tank push. We're currently navally invading in the Balkans with no real luck. Venice, however, has been retaken, which is huge, with air support in the south. However, the Soviets are really dominating the air over Germany. Prague is still under Czech control, and there's been a little bit of a push into Poland here as the border has stabilized in Germany. We're actually nearly a couple tiles away from Warsaw. Those naval invasions didn't really work well, but even after a year, now that there's so much stuff animating, it's taking so long to even get a year done, as we are pushing into the late 80s as well. I don't know when you're meant to stop playing this mod. We're going to see how far we can go and push it. But this new bloke in the Kremlin is a bit mad. Okay, so they still occupy more manpower than us. Oh wow, 1.2 million for the Soviets. The Czechs have lost heaps. 750k. So far we haven't even reached any really Soviet territory. We did a little bit well there, but I can't believe the Soviet-Afghan war resulted in World War III ultimately. I think the tech tree stops about 1995. So like 5 years after roughly this game thinks the fall of the Soviet Union is going to happen. Hopefully we can just outlast till then. But the US and the Ford administration seems to be opting for naval invasions into southern Greece at the moment. More of a stalemate, more or less. The US operating military logistics and hubs in East India, flying everything in from the west coast. But NATO's making a good push here into reclaiming and liberating Poland. And once again, German stormtrooper forces are flooding into West Poland. We're only one tile away from Warsaw, and realistically not too far away from Krakow. However, Czechoslovakia and Prague is remaining defiant. the Warsaw Pact states are incredibly loyal at the moment. We've lost 40k rifle infantry, jeez, within a year, so what's that then? We've probably got 6-7 years before we run out of rifles. But hopefully it just sort of breaks out either side, either wins or loses, and doesn't go on for a crazy long stalemate. I don't know if this mod can hold on and be capable of it. There's just so much stuff going on. Like, even modern day, it takes so long to even do a year. Let alone this with the reworked UI. Oh, here we go. Oh, NATO forces landed in Thessaloniki and had a small little beachhead, but got ultimately crushed. So NATO seems to be finding more help with US, Australian, German, and Canadian forces pushing into Poland. Just because I guess it's nice and flat compared to the Czech Republic. Oh, not having Austria on either side is incredibly annoying. Because Italy is essentially cut off and on its own. If it was connected to Germany, it would be better. But so far, ultimately, both sides are trading back and forth. Both have had some pretty decent pushes and offensives. The Soviets seem to be significantly winning the air battle in probably 60% of the conflicts, while NATO seems to be outright dominating the seas. But two massive alliances battling it out. Germans lost 500k. 1.2 with the Portuguese. Oh, it's because it's combined the I was like, geez, that's a lot for such a small country. It's combined the African conflicts technically, yeah, because like Uganda and their push in the south. Interesting. We can't even challenge the American fleet, the Soviet fleet in the Black Sea because we've got no NATO countries in there. Just curious to see how much the Americans built up that territory, which is kind of cool. Puppeting most of India and dividing it between multiple states. They managed to build most of the East Coast. Okay, so I was just curious to see who we're still guaranteeing. Oh, nice. Good push here. We might have thrown them out of Italy after the short and brief occupation of Bologna and Venice. And NATO forces are so close, only a tile away from liberating Warsaw in March 1983. Still holding in some areas, retaking territory, pushing into Poland. However, we are losing a decent amount of territory in Afghanistan. 32 million manpower that we can withdraw from, which is quite a bit. Okay, June 83 now. We've managed to build 5 more factories. Still getting pushed back in Afghanistan. Things have stabilized once again on that Italian Czech border. That push into Poland worked out pretty good. But we do struggle to push in the mud and winter season. Once things get really below freezing, we can have a decent winter push, but just that mud season is not good for the army. We've lost 3.7. 1 million of that's a bit deceiving, but still 4 million for the Warsaw Pact is a bit. Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia, losing a lot more. I'm curious to see how this war ends up, as both sides are fighting for every inch and ground. It's going to be interesting to see who wins it. I'm curious to see. Anyway, unfortunately on that note, it's time to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed episode 7 of this Hearts of Iron 4 campaign. Stay tuned for episode 8 coming out soon, where we continue this war between the Americans and the Soviets. If you want to see more from me, check out the videos on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.